Chavez, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and everyone please remain standing for our invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We welcome Rabbi Jessica Weiner from the congregation at Chaim in Lombard to join us, please.
Good morning, everyone. I bring you words and blessings from the Jewish community and from congregation Etsb and Lombard, and so I share these words with you now. O Holy One of blessings, we call out for your compassion and strength for DuPage County and for all who dwell within its borders. Tzur Yisrael, you are our rock, the foundation of our faith. Uproot from our midst all hatred and enmity, that we may remain inspired by our county and this great nation. Guide our leaders with wisdom, open their minds to possibility, distance them from corruption, and keep their hearts strong but not so hard, so as Moses taught, that they will not act haughtily towards others or deviate to the right or to the left. Hashofet, bringer of justice, raise up our county with the redemptive power of justice, relief for the poor, welcome for the marginalized, protection for the oppressed, care for the sick, and equity and equality for all. May our love for you inspire us to fulfill this great nation's mandate to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. Tikvatenu, you are our hope. Strengthen us when we are afraid. Help us to be generous with others and remind us to raise each other up. Let us always know the sacred privilege of praying and working, that we will heed the words of the poet Emma Lazarus, who reminds us that here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Goalenu, you redeem us. Give us strength and courage to be bold in our actions and deep in our compassion for all those with whom we share this great land. May you, our leaders, use your power and wealth to be a voice of freedom for all who dwell on earth, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, fulfilling Ezekiel's search for those who repair the wall or stand in the breach before me on behalf of this land. O say Shalom, you are the maker of peace. May we always celebrate the many faces of you, Holy One, reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity. May you inspire us to fulfill our calling as leaders, to bring love and kindness to all corners of your world. Help our county to be a shining example to all peoples in friendship and freedom, fulfilling the vision of Isaiah. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. Let them no longer learn ways of war. And let us say, Amen.
Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Here.
Chavez. Here. Covert. Here. Desart. Here. DeCiani. Here. Eckhoff. Here. Garcia. Here. Hart. Here. Krajewski. Here. LaPlante. Here. Ozog. Here. Pachowski. Here. Renahan. Here. Rutledge.
Here.
Schwarzy. Here. Selman.
Here.
Tornatori. Here. And Zay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. If we could please invite Member Renahan and our guest Kyoko Chek to join us up here. All right. This October, Member Renahan took the lead in asking the board to mark National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. As we do so, we highlight the vital role the American Cancer Society plays in our community, raising funds and awareness to support those who are living with breast cancer, as well as those who have lost their battle, and the thousands of families impacted. We are also joined today by Kyoko Chek, coach of the West Suburban Making Strides Against Cancer. It's an annual walk and fundraising event held at Cantigny, and this year it was held on October 3rd. We celebrate and congratulate these champions who raised over $125,000. However, it's not too late. If you still want to participate, you can do so virtually at the Making Strides on the Go. So if I may, I'm going to read our proclamation, and then if our guests would like to share more with us, they can. All right. Whereas an estimated 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime, and 1 in 39 women will succumb to the disease. And whereas an estimated 1 in 1,000 men will develop breast cancer in their lifetime, but because less than 1% of all breast cancer cases develop in men, those cancer cases are often not diagnosed until they are advanced. And whereas women and men can reduce their breast cancer risk by maintaining a healthy weight and being physically active throughout their lives, in early detection and prompt treatment can significantly reduce suffering and deaths caused by this disease. And whereas in every community, the American Cancer Society is providing free information and services to people fighting the disease. And whereas 1 in every 2 women not newly diagnosed with breast cancer turn to the American Cancer Society for help and support. And whereas to show support for the American Cancer Society's fight against breast cancer and to support those who are being treated for this disease or those who lost loved ones, residents are urged to participate in local, state, and national activities designed to raise awareness and provide information about breast cancer in the month in October and year-round. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Ashley Selman, Vice Chair of the Board, on behalf of Daniel J. Cronin, Chairman of the Board, and members of the County Board, do hereby proclaim the month of October as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in DuPage County and support the efforts and work of the American Cancer Society, enacted this the 26th day of October 2021. Do we have a motion? A second? All those in favor? Approved. Thank you so much.
I would like to say thank you for the proclamation. The American Cancer Society Making Strides Against Breast Cancer is a nationwide movement. Since 1993, millions of our supporters and participants have raised over $1 billion to support the fight to end breast cancer. This year, Making Strides is taking place in more than 150 communities nationwide, and we had ours here in Wheaton and Cantigny just a few weeks ago. And the stats have been updated. We're at almost $130,000 now. 130,000. Okay, so we have united our communities, companies, and individuals across the country in the fight to end breast cancer for more than 2 decades, and we have no intention of ever slowing down. We've witnessed a 41% decline in female breast cancer death rates, and there are more than 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the U.S. today, including those who have completed treatment as well as those still undergoing treatment. But we know the job is not done. For the first time ever, female breast cancer has surpassed lung cancer as the most commonly diagnosed cancer worldwide. And an estimated 284,200 will be diagnosed with breast cancer in 2021, which includes also 2,650 men. So funds raised through our Making Strides movement allow the American Cancer Society to serve breast cancer patients and their families where and when they need us most, even during a global pandemic. Cancer information and resources are always available at cancer.org, and people can find information and support by calling our 24/7 cancer helpline and talking with a cancer information specialist, even on Christmas Day. So, live chat and video chat options are also available. In fact, in 2019, our staff answered more than 1.4 million requests for cancer information through our helpline and chat services, and more than 134 million visitors look to our cancer.org website for cancer information. Through a simple mobile app now, newly diagnosed breast cancer patients can connect with trained breast cancer survivors support during their journey, anywhere in the country, thanks to our Reach to Recovery program. And we're funding research. Our researchers are still in the labs seeking breakthrough treatments and running clinical trials. We currently are investing $76 million in breast cancer-specific research, and to date, more than $56 million has been invested in metastatic breast cancer research since Making Strides began. However, we know the pandemic impacted the amount we raised through our fundraising events to fund this critical research. An entire generation of progress and the future it holds depends on what we do right now to fuel and sustain this important work. So through our advocacy affiliate, the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, advocates are still working with national, state, and local governments to push for policy changes that help cancer patients and their families. And we also know that promoting education and risk reduction is an essential part of this fight. An estimated 41% of U.S. adults have delayed or avoided medical care because of the pandemic, leading to a substantial decline in cancer screenings. ACS is mobilizing a nationwide return to screening effort to lessen the negative impacts the pandemic is having on opportunities for individuals to find cancer early when it might be easier to treat. Our commitment to create a future free from breast cancer runs deep. As we look to the road ahead, more determined and more inspired than ever, we thank you for joining forces with the American Cancer Society, the nation's nonprofit leader in the breast cancer fight. Together, we will celebrate survivors and thrivers, fund the future of breast cancer research and programs, and ensure all women and men have a fair and just opportunity to prevent, find, treat, and survive breast cancer. In addition, I wanted to thank you for funding Giving DuPage. It has allowed us an opportunity to get volunteers and be seen in the community, and I know it's an important part for not only us, but our non-for-profit partners, especially those local non-for-profits, that this is their only opportunity to get in front of our DuPage County residents. And volunteerism is so important, so I want to say thank you for putting that portal out there for the residents of DuPage County. So thank you so much.
I'll be brief. We've got a lot going on. Thank you for coming out today, for all you do. I mean, today we said it is breast cancer awareness. We all know it's so much more than awareness, right? It's research. It's getting those tests done, right? It's advocacy. It's donating on our own. So thank you for being here today, and I'm very proud to see you.
Thank you so much.
Julie. Oh, you want to take pictures? You want to go ahead and do it?
Do we want to do one without masks?
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. If we can invite Member Zay, Jason Blumenthal, Bert Odelson, and then I believe Josina is joining us on the monitor. This morning, the Redistricting Committee Chair, Member Zay, brings forward the new committee map for discussion and consideration. He's joined by Attorney Bert Odelson, mapping expert Josina Mortina, and Jason Blumenthal for the presentation. So, Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I know we have a lot today, but I thought it was important that we went over the process. We started 10 months ago. It's been a long process when we started. Late census numbers, maybe using ACS numbers, waiting to see what our population went up or went down. We know that the population only went up 15,000 here in DuPage County over the last 10 years. I want to thank our staff, Jason and Dana, the State's Attorney's Office, our special state's attorneys, and who am I missing there? And the committee. Obviously, the committee was selected among the districts, except for one person, myself, which I don't know is a blessing or a curse, but it's something we have to do. There was a lot of talk. I want to thank a lot of the board members who came to the meetings who weren't on the committee that were part of the process. But again, I think we've come up with a fair map here today, and I'm going to hand it over to Jason. He's going to talk about the process, and then if we have any questions, we can go there. Also, I've talked to Chair Salmon. It's my intention to amend the agenda and to move this up to the first item. Our consultants have other obligations, so letting it sit down the agenda to the end of the meeting, I think we'll move it up to the first, so it'll kind of be fresh in our minds too. So thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Member Zay, and good morning, members of the County Board. As he said, we'll have our Special Assistant State's Attorneys with us, as well as our redistricting consultant. So I just wanted to briefly talk about the process, as Member Zay indicated, and talk about the three things that was required of the Redistricting Committee, looking at federal and constitutional laws, looking at the Illinois County Code, and then looking at the county board rules themselves. So with that, I just want to start with the constitutional and federal law. This is the 14th Amendment, the one person, one vote in the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965. I won't get too into that. We'll allow the lawyers to do that if we need to have any questions on that. Next is the Illinois state statute that requires reapportionment every 10 years of county boards. I do want to clarify one thing. We did receive a lot of public comment saying, please don't redistrict my school district. That is not what this is. This is strictly for the county board district. So this is not for your state, your federal, none of that. This is strictly for the DuPage County Board member district. So I was asked to clarify that with some public comments. So it is just these 18 seats. With that, though, there's four aspects that must be conformed to within. First one is that districts shall be substantially equal in population to each other district. Number two, shall be comprised of contiguous territory as nearly compact as practicable. May divide townships or municipalities only when necessary to conform with the population requirements. And then shall be created in such a manner so that no precinct shall be divided between two or more districts. So that's the baseline of the Illinois Counties Code. One other aspect of the Illinois County Code is it does allow the chairman of the county board to propose a map. The chairman asked the committee to do it as opposed to doing it. And if this isn't passed by November 17th, it would go to the County Apportionment Commission, which is convened by the county clerk, who would then appoint the county clerk, the state's attorney, the Illinois Attorney General, and/or their designee, and then the chairman of the Central Committee of the two leading political parties as defined in the election code. So also on top of that, the DuPage County Board rules themselves does define what the redistricting committee's charge is, as Chairman Zay indicated, that the senior-most member is selected as the chair, and then each district amongst them picks a representative. For that case, we did exactly that. Other things there to do is advise the board if we should hire a consultant, any and other necessities to get this reapportionment done. Need to be a map maker, anything like that, and then also meeting to create said maps. Over the course of this past year, the Redistricting Committee has met 11 different times, at various times stemming from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It is all public meetings. If anybody wants to go back, you can go on YouTube and watch any of those videos. It's on the county's YouTube channel. As well, there's been a public feedback portion open on the main page of the website for the past couple months at least, where beforehand we actually asked for public members' comments to say what would you like to see changed in these county board districts. We received a handful of comments at that time. Once we released the proposed maps, we did have it open for public comment again. At that time, we received over 125 different public responses, and that was provided to the committee prior to their recommendation here to the board. In addition to that, we actually had two in-person ones, one before any map was created. There we received low turnout of public participation, but we then did a 3-day series in here, actually in the county boardroom right over there in the public area, where we had all the maps of the proposed districts up there. We did receive about 20 people, I think a few less, but right around there coming in, and we actually did see some county staff members coming in too. It was kind of cool to see them asking some questions. In addition, the redistricting committee had a workshop where they met with the consultant on an individual or two-person basis to make these adjustments, and they worked collaboratively together to make this happen. So redistricting goals at the beginning of the very first redistricting committee meeting, there was 3 main goals that the committee came up with. The first one was to making sure this process was open and transparent, and that's including open houses, posting information online, which was done on the website, as well as posting about on social media of how can you make your comments known, and that was all completed. The second thing was ensuring that population deviations were within 1% or lower if possible, and you'll see here in a minute we were able to do that. And the third was attempting to group municipalities wholly in a single county board district when possible, and you'll see a couple of municipalities did have that happen. So population totals, as Member Zay indicated, we didn't get census data until mid-September, give or take, and at that time we found out that the county grew about 16,000 individuals, just shy of that. So with that, if you actually looked at the deviation of, these are the current, if we would have kept the county board districts as is, you would have seen deviations stemming from above 3% of that hold number of 154, I don't remember the exact, I apologize, 154,000 give or take, but so it's 3% above and 3% below, which would have probably been legally sound. However, the committee wanted to do better than that. So with that, I will turn it over to Josina to actually talk about the proposed map and the deviation that occurred from what we're presenting in front of you today. Josina?
Thank you, Jason, and thank you to the board. Thank you specifically to the Redistricting Committee and the chair of the committee, Zay, for really, honestly, I've done this for over 10 years and currently doing this in multiple counties, and really probably one of the most participatory and sound processes that I've gone through. Appreciate the process and the participation of all of the members. As Jason stated, you had a very little population change overall in DuPage County. So as you saw on the previous slide, you were within the plus or minus 5% deviation that's generally recognized as allowable under federal redistricting law. I appreciate the goal of doing better. I think for those of you who are around 10 years ago, before you had a only allowable deviation of 0. So now working within 1% was the goal that the committee put forward. And so we started with the existing map. As Jason stated, we had a series of meetings and sessions with members of the board. Every session was held with members of the 2 districts that were being impacted. So no changes were really made to the map without agreement from both parties. And we were able to achieve some of the goals that Jason laid out, including keeping certain municipalities whole, cleaning some boundaries, as you see here, between 4 and 2, keeping some townships whole, as you can see, between 6 and 5. And we were able to do all of this with well within the plus or minus 1% deviation. Jason talked a little bit about the redistricting criteria. I'll just go over that again real briefly. Because of DuPage demographics, you do not have any Federal Voting Rights Act requirements. You don't meet any of the federal voting rights standards to be able to draw effective majority minority districts. Again, equal population, while it's allowable within plus or minus 5%, the goal of plus or minus 1% was upheld. I think the highest deviation, as you can see in the slide, is only 0.59%. And trying to keep the districts more compact and contiguous, including respecting municipal and township boundaries. That's something I think that we were able to improve through the process. So I think you have a very sound map. Appreciate all of the work of the redistricting committee members, all of the input from the public. We hope that this is a map that people, I always say in redistricting, if you have everybody happy with the map, you didn't do your job. Everybody's got to be a little bit unhappy, but I hope everybody's happy enough to support this map.
Thank you, Josina. And if I actually have printouts, if anyone needs a larger of the proposed map, please let me know. I can pass that out. But then I'm going to invite up here Bert Odelson and Russ Seckler to discuss a little bit of the legal analysis of the current maps, or the proposed maps, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jason. Jason outlined very adequately in the presentation the constitutional, federal law, and the state statutes that we followed. When appointed by State's Attorney Berlin, we were charged with giving the legal analysis that would keep us out of court and have a fair and equitable map according to the federal and state law. That's exactly what we did. I have to say, after doing this, this is my 4th go-around and with remapping and doing it for municipalities, counties, and state. I think this is one of the better processes I've ever been involved in. Your map makers were excellent. Your GIS department was excellent. The State's Attorney's Office provided tremendous support. I was very impressed with the redistricting committee and the give and take by all the members to create a map which has less than 1% deviation is really incredible. And you can see that every day in the newspaper by the challenges going on with the state map and with the congressional map which will come shortly. So this map, I think, is
one of the soundest I've ever participated in, representing the population and the county in a very fair and equitable manner, as well as in compliance with the law. So I want to tell you that I appreciate the fact that State's Attorney Berlin appointed us. It was great working with Chairman Zay, the whole committee, and with Jason and with Connor. The November 17th date, the Reapportionment Commission date, was something to avoid, because once you give up your authority, and under state law, you're the one supposed to be doing the map. You give up your authority, and then it becomes almost a three-ring circus, to tell you the truth. It becomes a media mess. So we pushed hard to get to where we are today. Again, as Josina said, no one walks away entirely happy. It's kind of like collective bargaining, where both sides give and take, and the members did. And I can very proudly say you have a really sound map. I'm open for any questions as we proceed.
I appreciate the work from Chairman Zay, the Redistricting Committee, our lawyers, and our map makers. And I agree with an organization I respect so greatly. I agree with the League of Women Voters when they say this was an open, transparent, and bipartisan process, which included the public input. I know what I've seen, I've read misinformation out there. So Josina, if you're still there, this is Dawn Desart. I have a question for you that I'd like you to answer and put out there once and for all. Was this map created with incumbents' addresses included?
There was a layer of data, but it was not a consideration. It was not something that was discussed in any of the redistricting meetings, but it was a layer that was in the data.
But it was not used.
It was not used. It was not an explicit consideration. It's not something that we discussed. It was not something that was used as a factor in changing any lines.
Excellent. Thank you, Josina, because I had read misinformation that it was used, and you, the expert, the person who drew the map, you're telling us that it was not used. Thank you so much.
Well, if I could just clarify, it is in the minutes from September 29th that incumbency was considered. So if the clarification is it wasn't an explicit requirement, but it was part of the info.
Well, at the end, we will put, at the end when we make the map, we'll denote where the current board members and Forest Reserve members were.
Okay.
But that wasn't part of the drawing process. We didn't say, we got to move it here because Forest Reserve Commissioner X lives here and County Board Member Y lives there. That was not part of the process.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you
and
so
I didn't
much.
I didn't get a chance to thank the League of Women Voters who was here from our first open house through the whole process. They were great to have their input on that. And Tom Rickett from our GIS who did all these maps and really worked well with our consultants. So,
Member Ozog?
Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to reiterate, as a member of the committee, I believe early on in the process, we may have seen, we did see one map where there was indications where people lived, but I want to thank Josina for her work with us and that we did indeed not use incumbency as a factor. And I would like to refer to Mr. Alderson's memorandum. The second memorandum provided guidance on requested criteria requested for drawing districts. And if you would speak to that, I believe you reiterated that we did not use incumbency as a factor. It was not a requirement, of course, but we did not use it as a factor in drawing the maps.
That is correct. It is not found anywhere in state statute or case law. And incumbency is not a factor, should not be used. For convenience, you could see where people live. We do that in every map that I've ever participated in, but it is not a legal consideration or a factual consideration.
And it was not in this process.
And it was not in this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know that it was brought up about partisanship, and I was hoping that that was not used in this process as well. Josina, can you elaborate on that as well?
Yeah, that was not used at all, and that was not a layer of data for consideration in the mapping process.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that, because when I heard that come up as a request, I kind of cringed.
Yeah, if I could speak. So political gerrymandering is something we all read about. There's case law about. A number of states' Supreme Courts have ruled on political gerrymandering. It's gone to the United States Supreme Court, and we certainly didn't use that here. Never a consideration in any of Josina's work or our work.
Yeah, thank you so much. As a member of the committee, I'd just like to talk about the process that was used a little bit as well. On September 9th, committee members went in with the map makers, our legal, and our GIS team, and we were brought in by twos. And at that time, that was a time for committee members to ask to have lines moved. And it was pretty amazing process to see the lines being shifted and the numbers changing with our population. And every member of that committee had the opportunity to go in that room and make any changes they wanted to that map. When we came out on the 29th, we were, I think, surprised that we were within that deviation. We thought it was going to take 2 or 3 meetings, but we amazingly got to that 1% or under deviation. And, we all worked very well together. I know Don and I might have hem-hawed over the railroad tracks, right? We were, debating what line to use, but the railroad looked more smooth. We brought Main Street right down from North Avenue right down to Butterfield to make that so nice and straight, where it was all gerrymandered before. I don't know if it was gerrymandered or whatever, but it was all squiggly. I don't want to use that word. I don't want to use that word jagged. It was jagged.
It obviously didn't work since you guys are controlling that.
So we didn't. So so there was a lot of thought that went into this process. But and we did. We asked members to bring up if they wanted a different map. We asked for criteria. Criteria was given, but it wasn't viable. We couldn't use that criteria to redraw the map. So at any time, any member on this board could have submitted changes to this map, and we didn't hear from anybody. So this was a bipartisan map that was worked on by the committee, and I think the process was really, it was a good process.
If I can add something, we had a lot of talk about the forest preserve, obviously, and we invited them. I think the committee knows we invited them to be part of the process. But I know I talked with Member Desart today. We have this big voters omnibus bill down there right now in Springfield. The rumor is the Forest Preserve has put in to draw their own districts. That's in that bill. So now it makes sense why they went out and got their own map and do everything else, because if it gets passed into law, then they'll have that ability. They're actually having a public hearing right now on their map. So I think they kind of left us a little bit in the dark on that. If they just would have been upfront with us from the beginning and said, listen, we want the ability to draw our own map. We're going to go to Springfield and do it. It would have saved us time. It really would. There was a lot of discussion on it, which was good. We're discussing that. But now it kind of makes sense for them why they went that tact and why we went the way we did. I personally think it's bad. You're going to have now forest preserve districts and county board districts that are basically 85% the same, except for certain areas, which will confuse the voters. But again, we heard that's going to be in the bill down in Springfield when it drops this week, and that kind of maybe explains why they were in that map process. And again, if they wanted to do that, all they do is tell us. They're their own government; they can do whatever they want. But again, to say they didn't feel welcome and they didn't feel everything else, obviously there was another alternative that they had been thinking about from the beginning.
Member to start. And just to add to the conversation, we found out that information from our lobbyist, Chip Hume. But I understand that the omnibus bill might fail because there's so much in it right now. But we can discuss it more today during legislative session.
Right, and that's another reason why to do this, because in that bill, it's also to move the November 17th date back, but if that doesn't pass, then we're in trouble. So it's better to get it over with now and not have to depend on Springfield.
Member Chavez?
Thank you. I just want to comment because I will be having an amendment, so I thought it might be an appropriate time to bring that up. Unfortunately, I felt like things were a little rushed as a committee member, so we had public viewing October 15th, 16th, and 18th, and we received about 9 pages of public comment. Unfortunately, we voted on these maps to push them through on the 19th without really any consideration to public comment, so I did make a request in committee to meet with the map maker and our attorney, and they were gracious enough to do that. So I will be having an amendment made to this process that includes the public comment that we actually received during those critical 3 days. So I just wanted to make everyone on the board aware.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yep, sorry, Member Krajewski.
Is it amendments to take into account all the public comment?
Not all the public comment, but just between, that was the change that you and I made with the map maker for District 2 and 3. With the forest preserve, it includes that, and it also includes 2 and 5, where we got public comment that we had split Steeple Run.
Okay, no, because I know there was public comment from commenter to comments all the time about moving Winfield in 6th and 2, and I didn't know if we addressed all the different public comments or just those.
I only addressed the ones that came from my district.
Okay.
I think it would have been
That's fine.
appropriate that if each member of the committee had to address their own. I think that's the way it should have been done.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Yeah,
Just
please.
so the board is aware, talking to co-counsel, we did do an analysis of the proposed amendment. It was done in time so that the state's attorney's office and Jason could put together the legal descriptions and have everything ready in case the board wanted to approve that. And it is legally sound as well. If that amendment were incorporated, it wouldn't affect the legal standing of the overall apportionment plans. Wanted to make sure the board was aware.
And just so you guys know, I have a printout of that, and I will pass that out here. Sure, I was just waiting for Member Chavez to make that comment.
And there was other public comment. It went to those districts. District 6, the majority of District 6 decided not to take Winfield in, so those were discussed and looked at. So it wasn't falling upon deaf ears.
Member Sark?
You know, one more thing I'd like to say, and kudos to you, Chairman Zay, because I was not on the committee officially, but you let anybody who was in the room, I know Member Puchalski, Member Tornatori, several of us attended the meetings who were not on the committee officially, and you let us all speak and add input too. So kudos to you for having such an open, inclusive committee.
Well, I mean, that's the process. I mean, we want this. Obviously, my position somewhere else. I mean, people will say, again, I think like Josina said, some people don't like this map. Some people like this map. I don't think everybody got everything they wanted, which probably makes it a good, fair, bipartisan map. I mean, the committee is made up of 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans, so it was a bipartisan effort by everybody. So again, I think we should be proud of what we did. As we're seeing maps coming out that look crazy, we're seeing going, oh my God, I can't believe this. They got it all over the place. I mean, I think ours looks good. Again, we went from 0 deviation 10 years ago. That's why we had the squiggly lines and all that, because it was 0 deviation. So now that was part of the committee's task, was to clean that up, straighter lines, straighter boundaries. District 6 was in 6 townships. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense, so we tried to clean it up when we could. I know we still get a lot of public comment, why didn't you put this one in, why didn't you do that? It just wasn't practical at that point. It just, we can't do everything. There's just some bigger cities that just can't get in, we can't get into one district, which I think the bigger cities might want 6 county board representatives instead of 3. You know, I mean, that might be a little better for them. So again, I hope we tried to make this an open process. I know not everybody's happy, but I think we should be proud of the map we came up with. Our experts that we hired, said it's good. It said it was a good, fair process, and I think that's all we're looking for. And I think we can hold our head up high on this one and say we did it right in DuPage, and the voters, that's who we're ultimately represent, will be happy with what we have.
Member Puchalski?
I just want to echo that we have probably 2 of the best experts, and if you look at the comments that they made in support of this map, those people on this committee really did a nice job, and I was proud to work with the other members in each district to do what was best for DuPage County. And I just want to say thanks, Bert and Josina, because we've had 2 of the best, and their comments are so telling as to what a job that was done. So I wanted to thank them personally.
Any further comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Now follow.
All right, next up, if we can invite Members Schwarzy and Linda Zerwin to join us. The Emergency Telephone System Board funds and provides leadership to our county's 911 emergency system. It is the primary responsibility of local government to provide public safety services to our residents. Today, ETSB Chairman Greg Schwarzy and Executive Director Linda Zerwin are here to present their ETSB budget. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The unglamorous but vitally, vitally important ETS board discussion sandwiched in between some redistricting. So very happy to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, and Madam Chair, thank you very much. So thanks for allowing me to be here to present our ETSB fiscal year 22 annual budget. As Vice Chair Solomon stated, the ETSB is an agency of the county with a separate governing board. The 12 members of the ETS board are appointed by the county board at the recommendation of the chair and the representative agencies for those seats. The treasurer and the county clerk also serve on this board as non-voting members. Thank you to my fellow board members, Member Renahan, who is finishing up her 3rd year on ETSB, and our senior, not senior citizen, but our senior member, Grant Eckhoff, who has in his 7.5 year on the ETS board. So thank you very much. The other members that make up the 12-man board include 2 members of the DuPage mayors and managers. We have a citizen rep. We have a member from the DuPage County Fire Chiefs Association, the DuPage Chiefs of Police Association, the Sheriff's Office, an emergency EMS rep, and then our 2 PSAPs, which get familiar with that acronym. PSAP is Public Safety Answering Point, and basically those are our dispatch centers. So people that answer the 911 call. So, first slide, please. All right, so this accounting unit shows us 4 lines: our operating, our capital contingency, and the total. We all know what operating and capital are. It's pretty self-explanatory. Capital contingency operates somewhat like a savings account. It's a rollover program, and it's currently allocating $17.3 million with a recommendation of contributing an additional $7.5 million for fiscal year 22 to prepare for the replacement of portable and mobile radios in the DuPage Emergency Dispatch Interoperable Radio System, which those radios are at the end of life, and I will talk about that a little bit more later. While the total budget shows an increase, this is due largely to the increase in the capital contingency in order to provide 911 services within the geographic footprint now and in the future. As you can see, the operating budget is decreased, and it continues to decrease. So next slide, please. Our operating budget involves personnel, contracts, and commodities. Through consolidation, the operating portion of our budget has recognized a natural decrease from fiscal year 21 to 22. And this is the first year that we only have 2 PSAPs. So if you members may recall that we consolidated the Sheriff's Department Dispatch Center with the other 2. So now we only have 2. In the personnel portion of this budget, you can see there is a proposed decrease. Even though that's decreased, we did approve in our budget increase in headcount from 6 to 8, and we also put in the budget a increase in salaries. These haven't been given yet, and we haven't hired 2 new people, but it's in there for the budget for future voting approval. With regards to our employee salaries in ETSB, our goal with Executive Director Zerwin was to go with what the county has been talking about for the last 6 months with employee salaries and making sure we're equal to what else is out there. We want to hold on to our excellent employees, retain them. We want to be able to get new employees, and we want to pay them accordingly. So. Next slide, please. Just a fancy pie chart. That's all. I want to show that. Next slide. Now our capital and capital contingency information. You can see the capital fund. We're proposing about a 75% increase. That's pretty cyclical with ETSB. With the different capital equipment that is used in the PSAPs. Sometimes you'll see the numbers, go up. Other times you'll see them go down. So that increase is just cyclical for next year. We're going to have to replace some certain equipment. And with regards to the capital contingency, I talked about replacing the interoperable radios. Again, that doesn't sound all that important in a meeting like this, but it is a huge thing that we are doing, and it's a huge undertaking. We're replacing over 3,000 interoperable radios for police and fire departments throughout all of DuPage County, excluding Naperville. Naperville has its own ETSB. So every single police department, every single fire department in DuPage County. The current radios are 11 years old. They don't make replacement parts for them. They don't service them the way they used to. The batteries are pretty much obsolete in those. And to provide our public, not only our public, but our police and firefighters with the tools that they need to do their job appropriately, we are planning on replacing these radios. It's a $32 million project that will be spread out across the next 4 to 5 years. It's a very, very exciting thing that we're doing. So next slide, please. With regard to revenue, our revenue really falls into two categories: the 911 surcharge that everybody pays on their either their cell phone or their landline, and then any grants that we are able to get. So as you can see, it's been pretty steady. Fiscal year 2020, we had a revenue of almost 14.9 million. Fiscal year 21, that's through to date, so we still have a handful of more months in our fiscal year. So, and then we're expecting about 14 million next year. We did receive a grant in 2019, also in 2021. We'll continue to look for those when they're available. Next slide, please. Some highlights coming up. As I said before, fiscal year 21 was the first year of the 2 PSAP model because of the Sheriff's Office PSAP closed. Fiscal year 2022, some of the things we're going to be looking for. Customer premise equipment. This is an update of the call handling equipment that answers and translates the 911 call. Institute text to 911. That's something the state is requiring everyone to be able to do by 2023, to where you can just text 911 and they know exactly, where you're at, what's going on. Vitally important, certainly, in the police world, when maybe there's victims out there that aren't able to call 911 and speak. They may have the ability to do that, so that's a huge thing. And then I just talked about the radio replacement. Next slide, please. Some of the next steps, we talked about texting to 911. That is a mandated thing that the state requires by 2023. Our wonderful executive director, Linda Zerwin, which I apologize, I didn't mention her right at the beginning, and I should have. She's the person that holds this together and has been doing a wonderful, fantastic job for many, many years. She's excellent at what she does. She participates not only in the ETSB board as the executive director, but she's on committees, state committees, and is really keeping her hand on the pulse of what's going on with 911. So she worked really hard with our 2 PSAP directors on working on getting an intergovernmental agreement, which we're still working on now that we're down to 2 PSAPs. We want to have that IGA in place, still being worked on, but we're making good progress. Ordinance addressing, especially for county, we have county addresses, as you know, sometimes can be difficult. You have the number, and then you have a direction, and then you have another number. For police and firefighters, responding to unincorporated addresses can be sometimes tricky. So that's a goal down the road, to see what we can do to maybe make changes to make it easier for police and fire to respond. And then bidirectional antenna. This is a recommendation of in-building coverage requirements for public safety radio coverage. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a large warehouse where you can't, even though maybe the guys on the outside are 50 feet, 100 feet away, you don't have that reception. So this is something that will work for that. So, Executive Director Zerwin, would you like to add anything? No. Okay. That concludes my report. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah. Yes. Remember to start? Yep. Now you got to come up here. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm still doing the math, but I'm here on page 2, where it said that for FY 2021, $28 million, to FY 2022, $36 million. That's a 28.5% increase. So that seems like a really large increase to me. And I'm trying to do the math. So I'm looking at the 3,000 radios. The replacement of the radios, $32 million. I'm giving it over 5 years. You said 4 or 5 years, but over 5 years, it would be $6.4 million. And then the $2 million for the customer premise equipment is $2 million, so that would bring it up to about the $8 million you're talking about. Is that why? Is that the cause of the 28.5% increase?
Like simple blonde math for me, but so the cap, what was created several years ago under the former CIO with the help of Baker Tilly, the recommendation was that we create the capital contingency. So that's like a savings plan. So what you see in our capital line item are only new things. Anything that we would do that already exists, that money's being set aside in the capital contingency. So when we get a contract for CPE or the radios or make a payment, then money is then transferred from capital contingency into the appropriate capital line item of the budget, which is why we carry so much more money over the top.
Okay, so I guess my question then is, why is there a 28% increase in your budget request? Number one. Number two, can some of those things like the radios or the CPE be covered by grant funding?
They are. The CPE is the state of the $400,000 and $500,000 that you saw in the grants. That was reimbursement from a state grant for CPE and consolidation costs. And so when we update our customer premise equipment this year, we'll submit for grant assistance as well on those. It's an increase because we're setting money aside. The cost of the radios will be a 4-year payment plan. The first payment would be due in December of next year, assuming the contract is approved in 2021, and then 4 years of payments following that. So we have to set aside, we were setting aside $6.5 million, we're setting aside $7.5 million in order to make sure we have sufficient funding and sufficient cash flow for anything else that comes along.
Thank you.
The downside of having two relatively new buildings is all of those things kind of come together in a big bundle and have to be refreshed or renewed along the same time. The radios will give us a 10-year solution, and like the current ones have done.
Thank you so much. And I do just want to say as an aside that I think most people in this room know that I had an emergency in April where I had double pneumonia, as it turned out, but I didn't know what I had at the time. So I did call 911, and I could not breathe. I couldn't breathe at all. So I kept calling 911, and I couldn't talk. So then I'd hang up and recall 911, and I couldn't talk. And finally they found me, but I honestly could not talk. So this text 911 would be a huge blessing. Thank you.
There is a component of text to 911 that's available today through Smart 911. This would be integrated into the customer premise equipment, so it would be a little more refined than what we have today.
Member Epcot?
Thank you. For more?
I just wanted to add that the whole rationale of having two PSAPs as opposed to having every police department or fire department have their own PSAP is that it saves the taxpayer, and has saved the taxpayer over the years, millions of dollars. And as we go through our budget process every year, I'm sure everybody's recognized that every year we've got pressures to expand the size of our budget. And this is one thing that's allowed us to, help the taxpayers keep it down. And actually the rationale, unbelievably, sort of came from Springfield. So as we move forward, I think consolidation, I've always said consolidation is a good thing, but we should look for more opportunities to do that.
Thank you, Member Eckhoff.
Any other comments or questions on this presentation? All right, thank you, Member Schwarzy. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
To finish up chair remarks, on October 28th, Giving DuPage is hosting their annual Volapalooza event, a celebration of over 100 volunteer honorees nominated for their service and contributions to our county. In the past 19 months, volunteers have stepped up to help in tremendous ways, providing critical support for local nonprofit organizations at a time when their help was truly needed. This virtual celebration includes videos of gratitude, music, and more. You can join us at noon Thursday, October 28th by going to givingdupage.org/Volapalooza. This event will also be available to view at a later time. And there's a lovely video from Member Hart and myself with some other fellow members of the Giving DuPage board thanking our awesome volunteers. So please check it out. All right, next on our agenda is public comment. According to our county board rules, members of the public shall be afforded time to address the board. Individual remarks shall not exceed 3 minutes in length, nor shall the total amount of time provided for all remarks exceed 30 minutes. So we're going to start with our in-person. All right, first up is Mary Holbein.
Good morning again. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Downers Grove, Woodridge, and Lisle, and I would like to express our appreciation to Member Zay and to the Committee for Redistricting, that legal team, and the map-making company, everybody involved with these maps. The map-making process was very transparent. People were welcome at the meetings and could make comments and ask questions. So it was inclusive, it was transparent, it followed all the state and federal rules, and including the League of Women Voters guidelines about how to draw maps. So that was a very, very good thing, and I am hoping that we can move forward on voting on these maps and get them done before the deadline and just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Next up, Margaret Brownlee.
Thank you. It's me again. I'm going to have to find another life after today, I hope. I am very glad to see all of you pull this together today. It appears that you will be giving approval for the heart, and I thank you very much for all the work that you had to do. I also want to thank some of you who brought up some points today. You had concerns that I was not aware of, and I really appreciate that I got a little education today on some of the questions that you had that I do think are important. I want to make kind of a one comment, though, about some of there was an innuendo that there's election security issues, and I think to just be comforted by the fact that the reason you picked the Heart machine is because of its state-of-the-art ability to really have transparent, fair paper elections, and we can all join in celebrating that and be happy that what happened really happened. And I think that was the whole reason in my supporting of the Heart, and I thank you as we move forward. I also appreciate whatever work. I'm learning a lot. Thank you for all the work that you did on the redistricting. I did not know you had to go through all of this. So I really got a bird's eye view of the hard work that you have and how difficult it must be sometimes. And I thank all of you who stood with the Heart from the very beginning. I appreciate that. I just want to finish up to kind of comfort those who are a little worried. Remember that election officials, this is a quote from the CEO of the Heart, maybe she's a little biased, but election officials appreciate the security of a paper trail backed by comprehensive audit capabilities, including support for risk-limiting audits. Verity is built to the most secure standards set by the voluntary voting system guidelines. No other option available in Illinois meets this standard for security. So I thank you, and I'm looking forward to what happens. I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Next up is Becky Simon.
Hi, I'm Becky Simon with the League of Women Voters of Naperville. And yes, the League of Women Voters is here again. Your friendly local civics geeks. We have 4 local leagues here today: Wheaton, Glen Ellen, Downers Grove, Woodridge, Lisle, 100 years old, and Naperville. We keep showing up at these meetings because we are committed to making sure that all the voters of DuPage County have accurate, secure, and functional election equipment. Now is the time. Today is the day. We are excited about the procurement of the new election equipment. Thank you.
Next up, Carol Jean Davis.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to dovetail on my comments that I gave about 2 weeks ago. So, good morning, everybody, on the SS DuPage County Board. And today, I'm hopeful that we're going to set sail to approve some very important items: the new voting equipment and the new redistricting maps. Now, after the earlier meeting, I am fairly confident that the voting equipment is just going to sail right on by. But I want to comment that the heavy paper, it's necessary. If you want to know why, I'll talk with you about it. And the vote by mail ballots are extremely secure. It would be very hard for somebody to shift and shuffle that stuff around. And I can talk with you about that as well. So I'm going to jump ahead to the redistricting and just emphasize that the committee did follow accepted guidelines and procedures to arrive at the proposed map. The process was open and transparent. They followed proper procedures, and everything that was presented to the committee actually was considered. And not one person from the Forest Preserve that supported their version of a map communicated concrete suggestions for changes through proper channels directly to the committee. It's my opinion that presenting an entire map for consideration is perhaps not the most effective way to express a suggestion. In order for the candidates to move forward with planning campaigns, they need to know the boundaries of their districts, and the voters need to know who in the world they're going to be voting for. So folks, it's time to row together on these two items. I'm fairly confident that we are. So approve the election equipment, approve the new district maps. Thank you.
Next up, Barb L.
Hi, I'm really happy to be standing here today. I want to thank you all for the support you indicated this AM for the new election equipment. And I want to thank you also for listening and being responsive to your constituents who have contacted you over the last weeks about the issue. Especially Member Rutledge, Member Zay, and Member Schwarzy, who are my representatives who had to put up with me all this time. I do also want to join in the chorus of commending the Redistricting Committee. Chairman Zay and his committee was open, transparent, bipartisan since the very beginning. We brag about the process in DuPage to our league members throughout the state and how well this whole effort was handled. So thank you very much for all you did to make elections free and fair and secure for DuPage. Thank you.
That concludes our in-person. Do we have electronic public comment this morning? Evan's going to come up and read for us today. We started at 58, so we've got some time.
Good morning, board members. First comment is from Christy DeClean. Subject is voting machines. Please vet the various voting machine proposals that have been offered to. Please vet the various voting machine proposals that have been offered to Downers Grove. Accepting the most expensive offer with no explanation is not the democratic way. Openness and transparency will help all voters be protected and informed about how and why we are spending our tax dollars. This is your responsibility to protect and inform the people of Downers Grove. Respectfully submitted, Christy Clean Grove. Next comment is from Mary Lemansky. Subject is Verity is secure by design. Comment reads, Verity is secure by design. Intelligent scanning restricts provisional ballots from being cast without poll worker intervention. Digitally signed vote data is protected by two-factor authentication and stored in multiple locations. That's the end of that comment. Next comment is from Jarmel Barnett. Subject is voting machine choice. Comment reads, say yes to the chosen heart voting machine. That's the end of that comment. Next comment is from Pamela Barnett. Subject is voting machine choice. Comment reads, say yes to the chosen heart voting machine. That's the end of that comment. Next comment is from Erica Nelson. Subject, agenda finance item 9I, recommendation for approval of purchase voting equipment. Last month, the county board took action on the election division's selection to replace the county's outdated voting equipment with a majority vote declined to support that recommendation. For the past month, the professional staff members of the Election Division, working in partnership with the professional staff members of the county's Procurement Office, Finance Department, and State's Attorney's Office, present a recommendation that meets the criteria that will deliver to the more than 600,000 registered DuPage County voters and taxpayers safe and secure election equipment for our upcoming June 2022 elections and those that follow. This recommendation meets the expectations set by this board and is an example of the collaborative work of excellent public employees, as Chairman Cronin has acknowledged. Your process was followed and 2 bids were vetted, and there is a reduction in the final contract amount in this recommendation. As an election judge and advocate for a strong, secure election process, thank you in advance for voting yes to this recommendation. The professional staff members of the Election Division, from those who answer resident calls to those who lead the department, must begin to immediately prepare for the June 2022 elections. Your I will make that happen today. Thank you for your service and support for what is best for the residents of DuPage County. Sincerely, Erica Nelson. The next comment is an identical comment submitted by Erica Nelson. Next comment is from Edgar Pal. Subject is redistricting maps. Comment says, I am concerned that the redistricting committee did not consider alternative maps to the proposal that is presenting today. Member Chavez asked for maps to be drawn without considering the home addresses of incumbent board members and Forest Preserve commissioners. Several committee members, including Chair Zay, replied that the map makers had given no consideration to all incumbents' home addresses. However, public records indicate otherwise. In a memo to the committee on September 14th, Chair Zay provided a map that explicitly identified the locations of all incumbents' home addresses, and several members circulated this memo throughout the entire board. Even if the committee members did not directly reference those markers during their sessions with the map-making consultant, they certainly took this information into consideration. It is remiss of the committee members, especially Chair Zay, to dismiss Member Chavez's request in this regard. Alternative maps should have been considered. Further, the committee has claimed that the municipalities have remained intact. This is also patently false. Just look at the boundaries in the eastern part of District 5, cutting through Naperville and Lisle. Or look at the District 3 boundary cutting through Clarendon Hills, or the District 4 boundary cutting through Bloomingdale. Several committee members have ignored these flagrant deviations from the goal of keeping communities together or having straight boundary lines. Lastly, Chair Zay misrepresented my public comment offered to the committee on October 19th. I was not concerned about the boundary between Districts 5 and 6, which is aligned with the Naperville Township boundary. Clearly, this boundary is straight, not arbitrary, keeps the township whole, and meets all redistricting criteria. Instead, Chair Zay only needs to comprehend my comment in its entirety and recognize that I was referring to the squiggly lines that cut through municipalities and therefore do not appear to meet traditional redistricting criteria. That is the end of that comment. Next comment is from Margaret Brownlee, who already spoke in person today. Next comment is from Donna Prachekal. Subject is election equipment. Most of DuPage County's election equipment was acquired in 2001 and is no longer supported by the manufacturer. DuPage County Clerk partnered with the DuPage County Procurement Services Division and a team of subject experts to devote 3 months evaluating the election systems available to them. The system they chose will offer 100% paper ballots, 100% audible, no remote access software, external cards or hard drives cannot be inserted, made in the USA. We need to support the county clerk's choice. Senior citizens take their responsibility to vote seriously, but we need ballots that are consistent and easy to read. Vote in favor of Hart Intercivic. Thank you. That is the end of that comment. Next comment is from Jill Lexier. Subject is recommendation for the approval of a contract to Hart Intercivic for the purchase of a voting equipment system and services license maintenance. Comment reads, as an experienced DuPage election judge and the Illinois State Policy Advocate for the National Council of Jewish Women, I'm committed to safe, secure, and accessible elections for DuPage County. I strongly support the purchase of the Hart Verity voting system as recommended by the DuPage County Clerk. The Clerk's office partnered with the DuPage County Procurement Services Division and a team of subject matter experts spending months in a transparent and inclusive evaluation process of suitable election equipments. The Hart system is clearly the best choice as it offers not only great value, but also 100% paper ballots, 100% auditable, no remote access software, external cards or drives cannot be inserted, made in the USA, uniform ballots for vote by mail, early voting, and election day voting. Why purchase now? Most of the election equipment was acquired in 2001 and is no longer supported by the manufacturer. The clerk's office needs to order equipment soon so that it will be received in time to train the thousands of judges, like me, needed to efficiently and securely hold an election in 2022. Don't delay. Please vote for the safe and secure elections for DuPage County by approving the purchase of the Hart Verity system. That's the end of that comment. Next comment comes from Diane Niesman. Subject is COVID vaccinations for county employees. Next comment reads, Sheriff Mendrick's recent comments about DuPage deputies' availability to help potential personnel shortages in Chicago's police department highlighted a problem in DuPage County. He said he encouraged, but did not require, his deputies to be vaccinated against COVID-19. As an employer of more than 100 people, DuPage County should be mandating all county employees, especially sheriff's deputies, be vaccinated or be tested weekly. Please follow the science and protect the citizens of DuPage County. That's the end of that comment. And the last comment is from Neil Samuels. Subject is HART voting system approval. As an election judge, I am sincerely looking forward to modern, functional election equipment for DuPage County. Please vote for the HART voting system. That's the end of that comment, and that is the end of the submitted public comment.
All right, thank you, Evan. There's no more public comment, so I will take a motion on the consent calendar. All right, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Chavez.
Aye.
Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. And Zay.
All right, with leave of the body, we are going to, as members A previewed, move to redistricting so that our consultant can be on the line for this conversation. So that's item 17 on your agenda, redistricting. Members A?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second committee update, we have 2 items today. First one is we have 2 items today. The first item is just determination of the size of the county board, and then the second one is the map, which I think there will be an amendment on. With that, I move on RDCR 46721, determination of the size of the county board.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? All right, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman. And Tornatori.
Passes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on RDCR 470-21, reapportionment plan and map.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Let's recognize Member Chavez for the amendment, and then we'll go to discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think everyone's received now a hard copy of the amendment that came out of public comment. I had several public comments that came in the night before our Tuesday meeting, so right before the map was approved, but that needed to be addressed. So I would like to move to amend the redistricting plan by striking and replacing the following sections. Number 1, removing the portion of meets and bounds pertaining to the boundary for District 5, which reads the center line of Staple Run Drive and proceeding northerly along the center line of Steeple Run Drive as it meanders and becomes known as Meadow Lake Drive, and following the center line of Meadow Lake Drive, formerly known as Steeple Run Drive, to the intersection of the center line of Meadow Lake Drive. And 2, removing the portion of the meets and bounds pertaining to the boundary for District 5, which reads the center line of Steeple Run Drive and proceeding northerly along the center line of Steeple Run Drive as it meanders and becomes known as Meadow Lake Drive, following the center line of Meadow Lake Drive, formerly known as Steeple Run Drive, to the intersection of the center line of Meadow Lake Drive, and replacing it with the language, quote, and the center line of Maple Avenue, unquote. Number 3, removing the portion of the meets and bounds pertaining to District 5 and District 3, which reads, quote, a point approximately 0.8 miles east of Worley Road, approximately 21 feet from the intersection of Palomino Drive and 75th Street, and proceeding due south approximately 1,303 feet to the intersection of 77th Street and Yackley Avenue, and proceeding south along the center line of Yackley Avenue to the intersection of the center line of Yackley Avenue and 79th Street, known for part of portion of said intersection as, quote,
Green Ridge Drive, unquote. And proceeding easterly along the center line of 79th Street to the intersection of center line of 79th Street and the center line of Green Road, unquote. And replacing it with, quote, the intersection of the center line of 75th Street and the center line of Green Road, unquote. Number 4, removing the portion of the meets and bounds pertaining to District 5 which reads, quote, a point approximately 1,850 feet from the intersection of Meadow Lake Drive and Naper Boulevard, and approximately 1,362 feet from the intersection of Plank Road and Naper Boulevard. Thereafter, proceeding due west to a point approximately 694 feet, and thereafter from that point due north to a point approximately 40 feet, and thereafter from that point to a point due west approximately 367 feet, and thereafter to a point due north approximately 108 feet, and thereafter west to the western boundary of Tut Hill Road right-of-way, and proceeding northerly along that western boundary of Tut Hill Road right-of-way to the intersection of the western boundary of Tut Hill Road right-of-way and the center line of Plank Road, and proceeding northerly along the center line of Plank Road to the intersection of the center line of Plank Road and the center line of Naper Boulevard, and proceeding northerly along the center line of Naper Boulevard, known for portions of its length as Naperville Road, to, quote, and then I don't have the reinsert there, I'm noticing. I don't know if we need to make note of that. But number 5, removing the portion of the meets and bounds pertaining to District 2, which reads, quote, and the center line of Plank Road and proceeding southwesterly on Plank Road to the intersection of the center line of Plank Road and the western boundary of Tut Hill Road, and thereafter proceeding southerly along the western boundary of Tut Hill Road to a point approximately 677 feet south of the intersection of Tut Hill Road and Plank Road, and thereafter proceeding east to a point approximately 433 feet away, and thereafter proceeding south to a point approximately 108 feet away, and thereafter proceeding east to a point 367 feet away, and thereafter proceeding south to a point of approximately 40 feet away, and thereafter proceeding east to a point 692 feet away, which intersects at the center line of Naper Road, and thereafter proceeding south along the center line of Naper Boulevard to the intersection of the center line of Naper Boulevard and to the center line of Meadow Lake Drive, known for portions of its length as, quote, Steeple Run Drive, and thereafter proceeding easterly along the center line of Meadow Lake Drive as it meanders to the intersection of the center line of Steeple Run Drive, formerly known as Meadow Lake Drive. 6, make various typographic corrections to the spelling and grammar, including the correct spelling of Worley and adding in omitted centerline language. As part of this motion, I move to alter both the map and the list of consensus blocks to reflect these changes.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Mr. McCarthy, do you want to offer some clarification on the part where you had a question there?
Member Chavez had a question about a portion of it. It didn't need any additional insertion because the route was already on Naper Boulevard, and the amount we moved off of it back onto Naper Boulevard is just continuing northerly along Naper Boulevard as it meanders.
Great, thank you. And I just want to point out that I really want to thank staff, because if this gives any indication as to how the work that goes into these maps, this is just 2 small changes, and obviously there's a lot of legal verbiage that goes into this. So I want to thank you for making these changes. I know it was some work for staff, but obviously it's something that they do for every portion of the map, so I want to thank them for that. This is really just to really simplify all this language. It was just to keep Steeple Run neighborhood whole and put it into District 2, and then to just clean up what we had between District 2 and 3, where there was some question as to whether or not that forest preserve property would fall into 3 or into 2, and we kept it in 3. So all that language is really just to summarize those 2 things.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that very long reading and nice, much easier to understand recap.
Thank you.
So we'll move to discussion of the amendment. Member Garcia.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just quick questions, because I'm just trying to clarify. So from what I'm reading, Member Chavez, this looks like Steeple Run will be in District 2, and is it Century Hill that will be in District 5?
That is my understanding, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
If Mr. McCarthy wants to offer some clarification.
You're correct, Century Hill will remain in District 5, but the second deviation is just a small fingerling subdivision of unincorporated area. I think it's about 5 houses.
All right.
So Century Hill is just west of Napier Boulevard, and Steeple Run is just east of Napier Boulevard.
Thank you very much.
All right, going to go Member Chaplin, Member Renahan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. So, yeah, and this was something that last Wednesday, Member Chavez and I went in with the map maker, and it was just an example of switching lines and trading boundaries between districts. And as Member Chavez read the legal description, you see how much work and effort goes into it. Drawing a map is a legal process, and it's not, you just can't throw the pieces up in the air and have it land and have a new map. I mean, there's really a lot that goes into it. So it was nice that we were able to work on that section together and agree to switch that boundary.
Thank you. Member Renahan?
Yeah, I just want to say, this makes a lot of sense to me as far as District 3 goes. Not carving out that one section and making Woodridge then into 3 different districts versus 2. I'd like Woodridge just to be in 1. It's a growing area, but this change makes a lot of sense, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you, Member Chavez.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendment? Member Covert?
Yeah, this seems like I want to thank staff for this map and Member Chavez's efforts in this, and seems like a very, very small change. So I don't see a problem with this. The lines look neat, and it pieces things together and not split them apart. So I'll be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions, comments about the amendment? All right. Seeing none. Connor, we can just vote on the amendment first, correct? All right. So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Aye. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatori. Zay.
Aye.
And Chaplin.
All right. So the motion passes. So we had a motion and a second on the underlying motion. Member Zay?
Yeah, no, now we just have the main motion as amended.
All right. So we had a motion and a second on that. Were there any other comments, questions, or discussions on this item? We'll start with Member Chavez.
Thank you. So I want to say thank you to the committee as well. I know that these are tough decisions. I will find myself in the minority today. So I felt like that needed a bit of an explanation. I did ask for an alternative map in committee. I did feel that all in the September 7th meeting minutes, also the September 14th memo, as well as when we met as a district on September 21st, that we did take the incumbency into consideration. In my opinion, that was a fatal error. I think we should have started a little without those requirements in place. I know that there's some disagreement on how that impacted the maps. In my opinion, I think we still could have drawn a fair map that would have pleased League of Women Voters, but I think it would have opened up the doors for us to take into some other considerations, like economic changes in DuPage County, how it's changed in the last 10 years, where people live. And so I was disappointed that we didn't get consensus on that, but I understand that's part of democracy. But I at least wanted to speak to why I had voted that way. My second disappointment was that we did have public comment, I mentioned this earlier, and open maps to the public on October 15th, 16th, and 18th. And then we got those public comments late in the evening on the 18th, and then went straight into committee meetings on the 19th. So there wasn't a lot of time for us as representatives to go through those 9 pages of comments. So I appreciate that the committee allowed me to make the amendment, because I felt like the public comment that came from my district was critically important to get added in. I think there was a lot of public comment, quite frankly, though. So I wish that we would have allowed ourselves just slightly more time to take that into consideration. And so because this, in my opinion, was a little bit rushed, and I think we could have been a little bit more thorough and diligent, I will be a no vote today. So I wanted to explain.
All right, thank you, Member Chavez. Next, we'll have Member Rutledge and then Member Ozok.
Thank you, Chair. Selman, I'm going to echo a lot of what Amy said. When we started this process, we were told that anybody could draw a map. But when we knew that a forest preserve map was drawn with the same taxpayer funding that we would use, we never were allowed to look at that map. And the most troublesome thing for me is the 125 people that took time to make comment about these maps that we really disregarded at that next committee meeting and went right to a vote on the existing map. So for that reason, I'll also be a no vote today.
All right, thank you. Member Ozok.
Thank you. First of all, I am proud to have served on this committee. I am sorry that I was not there last Tuesday. I had planned a trip with my husband weeks ago. I just want to reiterate what both our attorney and the map maker have said. At no time, and I also want to explain to our audience here that I'm also a proud member of the League of Women Voters of Glen Ellen, and at no time did we take into consideration incumbency. It is not a requirement, and the day that we were, that Member Chavez requested incumbency, she used it as a take away the incumbency requirement, and that was not a requirement. While we may have seen that in one of the earlier iterations of the current map, it was not considered. And I can say that in all assurance, and I can also back up what our attorney has said and also what our map maker has said. And I'd also just like to, especially for the audience here, just remind them that in the beginning, we fought for different legal representation. We felt there was a conflict with the first attorney, the special states attorney who was hired. And we also fought for a separate map maker so that we had that independence and we had that other set of eyes on this process. So I can say with great assurance that I think we are creating or have created a fair map, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Member Krajewski?
Thank you. I just want to thank the committee for all the work and all the staff that did the work there. I continue to ask at every meeting for the Forest Preserve. They had numerous opportunities to show up. They never showed up at any meetings. The final 2 or 3 meetings, a couple Forest Preserve board members showed up, and they really didn't have an idea of what was really going on with the process they were doing. But we did invite them to come. There goes. Second, as we asked our consultant, she said she can draw an infinite amount of maps. She can draw an infinite amount of maps. And the only thing she needs in order to draw that was criteria. And anybody could have given the board, the consultant criteria to draw a map, would have gone through legal to make sure it was legally appropriate. And there was never any criteria given to the consultant to draw another map. So the map maker and our consultant can't draw a map unless you give them the criteria that needs to be used in order to draw that. And that criteria needs to be legal in order to draw a map. And then they can present maps. But at no time was that person, our consultant, ever given from anybody criteria to use in drawing alternative maps. You can't just say, draw another map. And like she said, she can draw an infinite amount of maps. You need to give legal criteria to draw those maps, and that was never done. And there was plenty of opportunity to do that.
All right, next up, Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I was in strong support of Member Chavez's getting an alternative map drawn, just to at least look at it based on, you know, the changing demographics of our county. With that being said, I'm also concerned if this gets voted down today, what happens? Where are we at in this process?
Mr. Odelson, would you like to come back up and review that?
Well, we'd have a couple weeks to change it. I mean, that would be.
That's correct. We have until November 17th to call a special meeting and change it again. But then the statute kicks in and it goes to the Redistricting Commission. So it's out of your hands.
And I'm sorry.
Yep,
and what happens if it doesn't happen in a timely fashion?
The Redistricting Commission would take it and draw it.
Okay. Thank you.
So it removes the duties that you were given under the state statute.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Member DeCiani?
Thank you. I've said it in a couple of the redistricting meetings, and especially when they were looking at hiring both vendors, I think it was really a bipartisan effort that went into that. We hired a map maker who was a Democrat and actually elected official in Cook County, and Mr. Oldelson, who's worked for both sides of the aisle, is a professional and calling the balls and strikes, appointed by our state's attorney, Bob Berlin, to really keep it non-political. And I think we've got a good solid map that we can all be proud of. So hopefully we can approve this. I hate to see this go to another entity that could be political, because I think that'd be a tragedy, and we need to keep DuPage County as fair and square as possible. So I would hope we get an upvote on this. I think we've supported the amendment in good faith, and we can, in a bipartisan fashion, support this and get this put to rest. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Member Zeta close?
Yeah, to close. Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, we went through this process over the last many months, and it was a fair and open process. And when we got the census numbers and we saw the 15,000, at no time did anybody on the committee say, well, let's take it something else, and let's look at something else, let's look at social economic, let's do anything else. What we said was, let's clean up the map of what happened before. Because we saw that basically our map as it stands today was good legally. So we said, let's change it up, let's get rid of some of these, let's try to incorporate areas where we could, municipalities together, townships, all of that. You know, I keep hearing these statements, and we just heard a half an hour ago our consultant and our lawyer say incumbency residency was not taken into play. I mean, I don't know what else they could say at this point, that it wasn't. When I went in there to the map, I was in there twice. When I went in there, there was no demarcation of anything. I was one of the second one last to go in there, and then they were up there. They said they put that in there at the end. I mean, so again, it wasn't used. We talk about the Forest Preserve. We can continue to talk about the Forest Preserve. But right now, as the law stands, it is the county board that shall draw the maps, not the Forest Preserve. And we've been over this and over this. We've offered them to come and be part of it. I've personally talked to the Forest Preserve president several times. And Sheila, Greg, you were there at that event that we opened in Warrenville, and I asked them again, come and be a part of the process. They never did. And again, we can keep going and do whatever we want, but at this point, we need to move forward. This is a good map. It's bipartisan. Did everybody get everything they wanted? No. That means it's a good map, because then, you know who benefits? The voters in DuPage County. And I just find it amazing that we all went along with a change by Member Chavez to amend this, and now she's not even going to vote for it. So I don't understand that at that point, but that's her prerogative. But again, this is a good map. It's bipartisan. We heard again that incumbency was not taken into as a matter of drawing this map from our consultant, from our special state's attorney, but it keeps being said that it is, and when it wasn't. So again, we need to vote on this. We need to move forward. If it doesn't go forward, we go back to the drawing table, I guess, and we try to make changes. But again, we gave Member Chavez time to say, what did you want? Give us criteria, because again, our consultant did say, I can draw thousands of maps. And no incumbency was then given in a memo. That's what she wanted to see. The memo came from our legal counsel. It said it was not taken into as a matter of drawing these maps. So we need to move forward at this point. Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Ask for a roll call.
Did
Just
you want
point
to
of
respond?
privilege, if you
Sure.
don't mind. So I do appreciate that Members A and I are just in disagreement on this. And I am even in disagreement with some of the experts, quite frankly. But I do know that even when we went into our District 5 meeting and looked at the maps, we took pins and we put everyone's address in every district. I tried to look at this as a global process, looking at the county as a whole, instead of just at my district. I had a slightly different approach than many of the members on this committee. It's just a different way of looking at how we could have done these maps. I am for fair maps. I do believe that we just could have dug a little deeper. It was my understanding that because we had that requirement on, that it limited us as to what we could do with the maps. I know, again, that I'm in the minority, but I'm just trying to explain my position. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Member Desart.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, again, I support the League of Women Voters. They agreed that this is a fair, bipartisan, well-drawn map. And I just want to say, today is October 26th. This is due November 17th. We have 22 days. We've been working on this for months. And when I say we, I wasn't officially on the committee, but I certainly sat in on most of the committee meetings. We have 22 days before November 17th. And I think if we don't vote on this today, if we don't approve this today, we're not going to get it done. And I think if this goes to the Clerk's Commission for them to redraw the map or come up with another map, I think we are derelict of our duties. It's our duty here at the county board to come up with a map. A map has come out of this committee. A very good map has come out of this committee. One of the members of the committee asked for an amendment to the map. We all agreed. It was unanimous. And if we don't get this done today, I truly believe we're derelict of our duties. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin. Chavez.
No.
Covert.
No.
Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog.
Yes.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
No.
And Tornatori.
Aye.
All right, 13 ayes, the motion carries. Thank you, Member Zay. Returning to our normal order of business, we will return to item 8 on our agenda, which is County Board. And Member Chaplin, could you please lead that section when you find it? No problem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, under County Board, I will move on CBR 047621, resolution, appointment of Kenneth A. Rosenwinkel to the Wheaton Mosquito Abatement District.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. And Zay.
All right, thank you, Member Chaplin. Next up, Finance, Member Chaplin.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So just by way of committee update this morning, we had a very busy Finance Committee meeting. We approved many of our fiscal year 2022 budget resolutions, ordinances, so that was really good to get that all taken care of. And then just as a reminder, today we are having a special call meeting at 2 o'clock to discuss, we're going to have an update on our ARPA funds and to discuss our ARPA priorities. So I appreciate everybody, coming this afternoon at 2. And with that, I will move on FIR 046021, resolution acceptance of the extension of the Giving DuPage staffing grant. Motion second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. And Zay.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move on FIR 045921, resolution acceptance and appropriation of the HUD 2020 Continuum of Care Planning Grant, an amount of $149,778.
Request for leave. Leave is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. I move on FIR 047421, resolution renewal of group insurance programs.
Leave is granted.
Thank you. I move on FIR 047921, resolution authorization to transfer and appropriate $927,440 in additional funds from the general fund to the construction infrastructure fund for fiscal year 2021.
Leave is granted.
Thank you. I move on FIR 048021, resolution budget transfers 1026-2021 from various accounting units and companies.
No, we have to do a motion and a second. We got a rejoinder. Sorry. So one of you say second. Someone say second, please. All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. And Zay.
Thank you. That motion passes. Member
Thank
Chaplin?
you. I move on FIR 049521, resolution placing names on payroll.
Leave is granted.
Yeah, I move on FIR 049621, resolution, additional appropriation for the general fund accounting company 1000 in the amount of $5,873,891.
Leave is granted.
I move on FIR 047921, resolution, First Amendment to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Housing Department Authority to reallocate any unused IHDA administrative fees to be used to provide additional rental assistance.
Leave is granted.
And finally, I move on FIP 040121, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Hart InterCivic for the purchase of voting equipment systems and service license maintenance for the DuPage County Clerk Election Division from a period of October 26, 2021 through November 30th, 2025 for a contract total an amount of $7,264,965.60.
All right. Roll call is always in order. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll. Yeah, a request was asked.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatori. And Zay.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Member Chaplin. All right, next up is Development. Member Tornatori, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, members. Under committee update, we're going to be voting on a resolution to update the DuPage County Building Code this morning. Just a couple of points. The updates are now going to be based on the 2021 International Code Council codes. Our current ISO rating is currently 4, and this will allow us to maintain that high rating and stay consistent with other jurisdictions. Also, there are some other, one in particular significant change to the code, which will change the substantial improvement standard for properties in a floodplain from the life of the structure to 10 years. What this means is that someone can make an improvement on their home. It will not reduce the county's CRS rating. It is allowed by FEMA, and it will allow people to make changes on their property without affecting their floodplain rating. Also, our new software permits are going to be valid for 180 days as opposed to 90, and otherwise bring us into 2021. Moving on, I will move rather to approve DCO 96-21, ordinance Z2166, a zoning hearing officer's recommendation to approve a conditional use to allow an existing shed to remain less than 3 feet from the interior side property line.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Zay. Chaplin. Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman. And Zay.
Move to approve DCO 97-21, ordinance C2172, a zoning hearing officer's recommendation to approve a conditional use to allow an existing shed to remain less than 3 feet from the rear and side property line. Thank you, Madam Chair. Move to approve DCO 98-21, ordinance C2176, a zoning hearing officer's recommendation to approve a conditional use to allow an electronic message center sign.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, I'd move to approve a waiver of first reading on DCO 99-21, an ordinance which is an update to the DuPage County Building Code.
All right, we have a request for leave.
No, I'm requesting comment.
No, I know. I'm just repeating where we were. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, this is one little, two line item on the agenda, and it's going to pass, but I just want to say, this is a huge amount of work to look at this document, rework this document, come up with new additions and subtractions to this document. Huge amount of work being done here. So I want to thank everybody who put their back into this and updated this document for us. I just didn't want it to go unnoticed that this is a huge amount of work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a request for leave. If there's no objection, leave is granted. Thank you so much, Member Tornatore.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next up on our agenda is Economic Development. Member Amy Chavez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. By way of committee update, I just want to thank Greg Bedelov and Lisa Maselli for coming into our last Economic Development meeting and updating us on what Choose DuPage is doing for our county and bringing in business and in supporting our manufacturing and also in supporting our small businesses. So we got a great overview from them. I'd encourage anyone to jump on YouTube. It was a great update as to how the county is growing. I also want to thank WorkNet for all that they're doing right now to encourage this worker shortage that I think every business in the county is dealing with, quite frankly. I think that we all had hoped that we would see an influx of people back in by now to the work environment, and that just hasn't seemed to materialize. So I know that they are doing everything that they can to connect people who are looking for employment with our employers in DuPage County. So I recommend that anyone who is in one of those two categories to reach out to WorkNet, which is a great federally funded source for us. So with that, I will move approval of EDR 047321, resolution for a service agreement between DuPage County and Choose DuPage for the period of December 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2023.
So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. And Chaplin.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, Member Chavez.
I move approval of EDP 039421, award resolution issued to DuPage Regional Office of Education for their youth training program, contract amount total of $50,000. I move approval of EDCO 050721, amendment to contract issued to World Relief DuPage Aurora for youth training services, extend and increase this contract by $275,621.
Request for leave. Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Chavez.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to Environmental. Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair. I continue to be grateful to, even though I don't have a vote on a committee item, to be able to talk a little bit about what we can do to better our environment. With Halloween coming up, we have 21 pumpkin smashes scheduled throughout the county, so if you've got pumpkins in your yard, please consider taking them there rather than throwing them in the waste stream. Because the benefits of composting is that organic waste in our landfill generate methane, a potent greenhouse gas. By composting wasted food and other organics, methane emissions are significantly reduced. Compost reduces and in some cases eliminates the need for chemical fertilizer, and it also enhances water retention in our soils. So it's a great way to take care of excess runoffs, things like that. I don't know if anybody saw the 60 Minutes on Sunday night talking about the Colorado River running dry, and that is the watershed for most of the western states. So we are in a crisis, whether we see it here in our Midwest or not. But I will say that there are some subtle changes here that do signal climate change. I've been a portrait photographer for 30 years, and October is the biggest month of the year for outdoor portraits. And the changing colors are substantially behind this year. I always have told my clients that around October 15th would be the peak of color. We're not even there yet. So we're warming, and we're seeing it just in our environment. So I'm, again, going to continue to make recommendations on what we can all do to improve climate change in our own backyards and across the country, so thank you for that moment.
Great. Thank you, Member Rutledge. I'm seeing some members get a little antsy. Are we thinking we're about needing a restroom break? It's been about 2 hours, or do you want to keep
No, push
cranking?
through.
All right, I just want to make sure we weren't about to have everybody leaving at different times. All right. Yep, so with that, let's move on to Health and Human Services. Member Renahan.
Thank you. I move approval of HHSR 46421 resolution, the care center rate increase for per patient day charges, $332 per day to $345 per day for standard custodial care, $359 per day to $373 for Alzheimer's special care, and $570 per day to $593 for post-acute care effective December 1st, 2021.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Aye. Schwarzy. Aye. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Aye. Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. And Pachowski.
All right, thank you. I move approval HHSR 46121, resolution recommendation for approval of partial release deed and partial release of regulatory and land use restriction between DuPage County and Prairie Green
Second most
Habitat
favorable
for
rule.
project HM1101, allowing Illinois DOT to improve intersection of Illinois 56 and Illinois 53 at DuPage County and authorize the Director of Community Services to execute said documents.
Request for leave. Leave is granted.
Thank you. I move approval HHSR 46221, resolution recommendation for a fourth modification CDB agreement with Kids Above All, project number CD 19-12,
Second
Island
favorable
Downers
rule.
Grove Group Home Rehabilitation, reducing scope of work and reducing funding by $28,552.44.
Leave is granted. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I move approval of HHSR 46321, resolution recommendation for approval of a third modification, second time extension for CDBG agreement with Little City Foundation.
Second most favorable rule.
Renovation of 2 Hanover Park, project number CD 20-03, extending the project completion date through December 31st, 2021.
Leave is granted.
I move to combine items 13E, F, G, and H. These are all emergency rental assistance programs.
There's been a motion and a second to combine these items. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The items are combined.
All right, thank you. I move approval HHSR 47221, resolution appropriation for U.S. Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program in the amount of $27,357,321. Move approval HHSR 46821, resolution for appropriation for the U.S. Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program in the amount of $10,672,016. HHSR 46921, resolution for authorization to transfer funds from general government to U.S. Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Fund in the amount of $10,672,016. And HHSR 47121, authorization to create and transfer funds from general government to U.S. Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Fund in the amount of $27,357,321.
Anybody want to ask for leave? Anybody want to ask for leave? Leave is granted.
All right, thank you. I move approval of change order HHSP 318A-21, amendment to resolution HHSP 318-21 to DuPage Federation of Human Services Reform Language Access Resource Center to provide American Sign Language services, increasing by $8,050.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Renahan. Next up is Judicial and Public Safety. Member Renahan.
All right, great, thank you. In terms of committee update, I just wanted to let everyone know in terms of how things are going over at the court with the eviction, residential filings. They are up. The first week, I think we had 64 cases filed. Last week, up to 92 cases filed, and just alone yesterday, 16 filed. So thank you to Court Administrator Armstrong for keeping us in the loop of what's going on over there. I move to combine JPS items 14A, B, and C. These are all contracts with Wes for legal research.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll. Oh, it's to combine. Sorry. All those in favor? All right, combined. Please proceed.
Okay. I move approval of JPSP 39121, contract with West to provide staff online research for the Law Library, November 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2026, not to exceed $151,678.80.
Well, they're combined.
DC, Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's a long day.
JPSP 39221, also with West, to provide patrons online research passwords for the law library, November 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2026, not to exceed $354,177.72. And JPSP 39321, also with West, for the purchase of legal books and updates for judiciary and staff for legal research, December 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2026. Contract of $510,853.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Now, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Who was the second?
I believe it was Paula, not Garcia.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. And Pachowski.
All right, motion's carried. Thank you, Member Renhan. Next up, we have an update from Legislative. Member Desart.
All right, thank you, Chairwoman. A couple of federal legislative updates from our lobbyist, Bill Viney, and his company. On October 31st, the 30-day surface transportation extension will expire, and Democrats will either have to pass the bipartisan infrastructure deal or pass another short-term extension. The bipartisan infrastructure deal's fate is still linked to the budget reconciliation package. Last week was largely focused on negotiating cuts to the budget reconciliation package with the goal of getting the number to around $1.9 trillion. It appears that congressional leadership and the president have come to a consensus, even if the progressives do not seem to be happy with the changes to the overall package. Some of those changes currently, as the budget reconciliation package stands, it's $3.5 trillion, and it can be broken down into 4 buckets: $1.9 trillion for family proposals, $1.0 trillion for health proposals, $0.6 trillion for climate proposals, and then $1.1 trillion for the other proposals, including housing, higher education, immigration, and infrastructure funding. And we've all kind of heard some of the things that are in those buckets, but let me go through. In the families bucket, but scaled way back, is the family medical leave, potentially reduced to just 4 weeks, and the extension of the child tax credit. They were talking about have it being 4 years. Now it's been reduced to just 1 year. In the climate bucket, are tax credits, grants, and loans for energy producers that reach emission reduction goals, but out is the carbon tax. In education, jobs, and the other bucket, there's funding for expanded pre-K and expanded Pell Grants. Funding for affordable housing has been drastically cut, unfortunately. And out is the idea of free community college and legal status for dreamers. Reports indicate that the president wants to finalize the package that could cost anywhere from $1.8 trillion to $2.2 trillion, likely on the lower end. And so that's a bit of an update from Washington. There is a lot happening in Springfield, too. A potential threat to the puppy mill ban legislation that Brian Krajewski just told me about today. And as you heard from Chairman Zay, an omnibus bill regarding elections. So here's the tease for information on what's happening in Springfield during the fall veto session. You're all invited to come to the legislative committee meeting this afternoon at 1 o'clock or right after county board. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Desart. Next up is Public Works and Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of FMR 046521, authorization to submit a grant application to the Community Development Block Grant funding for the DuPage Care Center for the renovation and remodeling project in the amount of $1.8 million.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Ozog.
Yes.
Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin. Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. And LaPlante.
All right, Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of FMR 046621 resolution, authorization to submit a grant application to the Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 response funding for the DuPage Care Center for the air handling unit replacement project in the amount of $1 million.
Request for leave. Leave is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. I move for approval of PWP 039521. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to LAI Limited for the purchase of Duzuric valves and replacement parts for the Woodridge, Nordic wastewater treatment facilities for a 4-year period, October 27, 2021 through October 2025 for Public Works. Contract total amount not to exceed $80,000. Not suitable for competitive bids, sole source.
Request for leave. Leave is granted. Thank you. Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of PWP 039621. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to Superior Industrial Equipment LLC for rehabilitation of nitro pump number 1 at the Woodridge Green Valley Treatment Plant for the period October 27, 2021 through November 30th, 2022 for a contract total amount not to exceed $50,000. Again, not suitable for competitive bids, sole source.
Leave is granted.
Thank you. Next, I move for approval of authorization to travel. Deputy Director of Facilities Management to attend the National Association of Energy Services Companies Retrofit, Renovate, Reduce Conference in Austin, Texas from November 10th, 2021 to November 12th, 2021 to participate in a panel using Treasury funds to make government buildings healthier and more resilient. Conference registration, airfare, and one-night lodging is included. Expenses to include transportation to and from airport, 1 night of lodging, miscellaneous expenses, parking mileage, etc., and per diems for an approximate county cost of $453.05.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Ozog.
Thank you.
We've already completed our work for redistricting, so next up will be technology, and Vice Chair Hart, please. Mine was working earlier. You can slide over there.
Button. You think I would learn? Yeah, right. I swear I'm the vice chair. So just one item today. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on TEP 397-21, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Infor Inc. for ERP software maintenance and support.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Hart.
Aye.
Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin. Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. And Garcia.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Member Hart. Next up is our Transportation Committee, Member Pachulski.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. I would move to approve DTR 0457-21, a resolution to set a date for a public hearing on the Comprehensive Road Improvement Plan for Impact Fees, ODT-021S-89.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. And Ozog.
All right, motion carries. Member Pachulski.
Move to approve DTR 0458-21, a resolution to set a date for a public hearing on the long-range transportation plan.
All right, there's been a request for leave, and leave is granted. Thank you, Member Pachulski.
Thank you.
Next up is discussion, this PA 99-646, pension obligation projections required by Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act. Is anyone wishing to be recognized on this item? All right, seeing none. Do we have any old business? Member Chaplin, and then we'll go Garcia and Zay.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So I would like to give a special shout out and a special thanks to our DuPage County staff members, Joan Olson, Sarah Hunn, Jen Boyer, Keith Briggs, and John Neal, who all gave so generously of their time and last week and made a really special day for a group of Girl Scouts, Girl Scout Troop 55527 from Villa Park, who visited the county campus to learn about county government. I think we all had a lot of fun. It was really, the girls were just amazing. They asked really great questions. I think we have some future county board members out of that group, but they were very engaged, and I think everybody had a really great time. So I just wanted to do a shout out to staff because it was, they really did a great job at putting the presentations and taking them on tour. So it's really great. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Member Garcia?
Thanks. I just wanted to follow up on what I said at the last county board meeting in regards to World Stroke Day being October 29th, and I kind of said I would come back with FAST and what it meant, because 1 in every 6 cardiovascular death is due to a stroke. So, Karen Ayala, when she says, let's get the COVID numbers down because we have other cases that need to go into the ICU, that's actually one of the ones that we need to be doing. So just really quickly, I wanted to let everybody know what the symptoms are of a stroke so you're aware of it. F stands for has their face fallen on one side. A is arms. Can they raise their arms both ways? S is their speech slurred? And T is time. Because if you get them to the hospital in time, they will actually, their brain damage will be limited. So I just wanted to come back to that, and so we can get everybody familiar with that, and it's really quick and fast, and just so you're all aware with what the symptoms are. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Next up, Member Zay, and then Member Renahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know I'm not as important as legislative or environment, but I just want to thank our staff. We noticed it rained the other day, which has been lacking lately. All of our gravity-fed facilities took water in, and 3 of our major pump facilities took water: Armstrong Park, Spring Creek Reservoir, and the Elmhurst Quarry. Right now, Armstrong is about 60% filled. Between all of our facilities, our staff estimated we took in about 100 million gallons of water Sunday night. So we didn't see a lot of flooding, but our facilities in some areas took water in, and hopefully we'll get that pumped out, and then we'll be ready for the rest of the rain this week. So thank you to our staff.
Awesome. Thank you, Member Zay. Member Renahan?
Yeah, keeping on the staff role, one person's name I didn't hear when we talked about redistricting was Tom Ricker, and I really appreciate, he gave us some really comprehensive maps before and after, with all the different options, and I just think what an unsung hero we have, and we were very lucky to have him, so thanks, Tom.
I could not agree more. I think GIS is one of our funnest tools, and he was really great at taking feedback. Like, I wanted the decal card to show some other things, and he fixed that very quickly. So I see Member Ozog and then Member Schwarzy.
In that same vein, I want to thank Jason Blumenthal. He's really been totally on the ball with the redistricting issues, keeping everyone informed, and he's done a great job. So thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you. Member Schwarzy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go back to the vote for our new election equipment. I just want to, first of all, thank the clerk's office and the election committee that put this together. With the events that happened post November 20 election and all the accusations and all the stuff out there, we owed it to our residents to give them the safest, most reliable, most confident system available, and it was great to see a nonpartisan vote, and I just want to thank this board also for voting appropriately. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Schwarzy. Is anyone else seeking recognition under old business? All right, seeing none, is anyone wishing to be recognized under new business? New business. Aren't we efficient today? All right. So I will make a motion to move us into executive session pursuant to Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 122C-11. We will be discussing pending litigation, and also pursuant to Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 122C-21, we will be doing a review of executive session minutes. So can we get a second, please? So a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Aye. Zay. Aye. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. 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 Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski, Renahan, Rutledge, and Schwarzy.
All right, let's go ahead and technology, make sure everyone who's on Zoom who does not belong in the executive session is gone. Okay. Open session. All good over there? All right. Do you need a roll call now that we're in open session again? Great. So I'll take a motion on, or I will make a motion on CBR 497-12, resolution review of county board executive session minutes. All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin. Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. And Zay.
All right, can we get a motion and a second to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? This meeting is adjourned to Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Thank you, everyone.